Welcome to Finding Certainty with your host and U.S. Army veteran, Patrick Laing. Over the next hour, you'll learn from Patrick and his expert guests how to attract more certainty into your business and your life. Now, here is your host, Patrick Laing.
Good morning. Welcome to Finding Certainty. We appreciate you coming back. If you're a frequent listener or if you're new to the show, thanks for stopping by. On Finding Certainty, we analyze all the ways in which we can create, develop, and discover greater certainty in our lives and in our occupations, whatever that might be. We work with nonprofits, we work with businesses, we work with individuals in our company certainty management. And here on the show, we dissect the ways in which we're doing so. Today on our show, we have Mr. Rob Jeremiassen. He's one of the co-founders of Scale Up, which is the Sandler training franchise, I guess you call it, right, Rob?
Correct. That's
You're
right.
in Las Vegas, Nevada. Thanks for being here, Rob. Really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, well, always a pleasure, my friend. You know, I always start out the show by sharing two reasons why I've invited this specific guest to be on Finding Certainty. And the first is, I believe, especially in business, but really in anything we do in life, having an understanding of effective sales skills is paramount. You might be closing your girlfriend and marrying you. You still need to understand the value of sales. Obviously, their business is focused on businesses and corporations that are looking to increase their sales numbers, but I believe it's a really critical piece in finding or creating more certainty, more assurance in our own businesses and lives. And secondly, I'm an enormous fan of the Sandler sales system. I was a sales trainer for many, many years, incorporated Sandler into much of what we did and what I've done. And there are a lot of different sales methodologies out there, a lot of different sales companies, but I believe Sandler is the best, and I speak from experience. We'll get into a little bit of that in the show today. I'll share at least one of my experiences as Rob breaks down for us what Sandler is and how it differs from everything else out there. So thanks again for being here, Rob.
Yes, great to be here, Patrick.
So starting out, why don't we talk a little bit about you?
Okay.
You're on the hot seat. Tell us a little bit about who is Rob Jeremiassen, where you're from, maybe a little bit about your upbringing and your family, and what brought you to owning this Sandler franchise here in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, I guess I'm a Minnesota native, right? So that's where I was born and grew up, and, long-suffering Viking fan. Once I finished school, I thought, it's pretty cold in the winter in Minnesota. I'd like warmer climate. So I moved to California, and I was in San Francisco area for a while. I moved to Los Angeles, and then I was in Austin, Texas for really what was the start of I guess you could say, my professional career. Back in the later 90s, got married, had two of my three kids there. And was working for Dell Technologies, and was there for 4 years. And during that time, I had a real interest in, moving overseas. My wife we were interested in exploring, going somewhere else and that sort of thing. And, what I was really interested in, this is around 2000, was somewhere in Asia region was compelling, because that's when it was really all happening, that part of the world. That was exciting for me. So I was able to get an opportunity to do that, but actually based in Sydney, Australia, to do an Asia Pacific role, but they needed someone specifically based in Sydney, and that was like, wow, okay, that'll work for me and family. So we moved there in 2002, and long story short, spent 14 of 17 years in Australia with a 3-year stint in Singapore.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a lot of different roles at Dell, and then eventually moved to a software company, an ERP software company from there, and did a lot of stuff across Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia, Asia Pacific, and Japan. And that was a tremendous experience, and moved back to the Go ahead.
So a question for you. Sydney seems just like an incredible city to me. I've got a very good friend who's a movie producer down there. I lived in New Zealand as a child. I've been all over the South Pacific, but I've never been to Australia. It's on my bucket list. So,
Wow.
I mean, 14 years there, that must have just been incredible.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, we became permanent residents and stayed in, a long time. At first it was like, 2 years, but kind of open from there. And it just, ended up staying, getting permanent residency, like I said. And in the middle of that, did a stint in Singapore, which was super exciting as well. But living in Australia was fantastic. I mean, my two oldest kids are in university, or one's finishing, one's about halfway through. They're going to school in Australia. I mean, my kids basically grew up there, and, so
That's home.
Yeah, exactly. So they're in university there, and I go back, quite a bit because I have tons of friends there, and as well as some kids in school and that sort of stuff there. So it's really been a great experience living abroad and doing those things.
I can imagine. So you worked in technology for a long time. You said Dell, and then a software company.
Yeah, and so did that, and then also some startup stuff. And when I came back to the U.S., it was with the software company, and then migrated to a startup to work with some friends that I'd worked with many years ago at Dell, and that was in the cyber security space. So, I had done a big multinational company. I'd done a medium-sized sort of family-owned run business and some startup stuff in technology, which was phenomenal because they're all very different experiences. Right. And that was great. So kind of coming into how I got to where I am now story is, so my business partner, David Ooze, who I met when I moved to Australia. He was working for Dell in Japan, and he'd lived in Japan for decades, and pretty much most of his professional career to that point. Anyway, so we worked together a bit. He changed companies. We stayed in touch. We'd meet up in different parts of Asia, Singapore, Tokyo, Shanghai, Hong Kong, wherever, that type of thing. Stayed friends for all those years, and he moved back to the U.S. a similar time as I did, and then COVID hit, right? And so I was doing some startup stuff, and that was probably a good thing to be doing during COVID, but it wasn't a permanent thing, and he was doing stuff that wasn't what he really wanted to do. And we started talking about, hey, we want to do something different. And it kind of was like, okay, which treadmill do we want to get back on, right? Like I said, we've done big multinational, medium size, and startup stuff. He'd done the same, and weren't really compelled to go do that.
So question. Were you in sales throughout most of that time?
Yeah,
project it was always management, operations. What were you doing exactly?
Oh, good question. I mean, all of those things were a revenue side of the business. So direct sales, managing teams, managing larger teams, regional, sub-regional. I had ANZ business or Southeast Asia or Asia Pacific, Japan type of stuff, and in the U.S. was sort of a global role for part of that business, and then on the startup side, it was around getting the revenue business going and getting that set up and, starting the process of generating revenue type of thing. So it was always on that side of the business.
Right. So a good precursor to becoming a sales trainer. I look back at my career and I've done the same. I've worked for corporate America and big, major corporations, mid-sized startups, and that gives you a unique perspective. I mean, if you've always been a corporate guy with, big Fortune 500 companies, I think you miss a lot of the intricacies and challenges of a startup, intricacies of a mid-sized family-owned company. They're all the politics, the dynamics, the technologies, the budget, right? I mean, there's a lot of variables between the different types of businesses. And if you have only done one or the other, I think you're missing a big piece of that perspective. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, they were all very different experiences, and they varying degrees of success or challenge or pain or fun, right? So
a lot of pain.
Yeah, I mean, the pain builds, thick skin and like learning, right? You learn
skill set, sure.
Right, exactly. I've had roles that were like a lot of fun, and I was successful in them, and I was able to do other things after that, and I learned stuff. But the ones that were probably the most challenging, those are the ones I learned the most. I would probably
absolutely
say. Yeah.
For sure. They definitely make you grow, and you have to learn to pivot and adapt and all those things. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. So you're talking with David, who I've met.
Yeah.
Very, really great guy.
So
He and you were looking for maybe a new direction. And did you want to get back on the treadmill, right? Did you want to go
yeah.
back to work for a big company, start your own? What? Tell us more about that conversation.
Yeah. So I mean, we were both like, he wanted to do something different. I want to do something different. It was like just during COVID, so it was a really difficult time to um, specifically go into a direction, but it was like a good time to actually pause and like go, okay, what do we think, right? I mean, it was, had it not been COVID, probably wouldn't have done that. We probably just would go on whatever horse we found that seemed the best one, and off we go, which could have been fine and all that. But I think, during that period specifically, we were like, because there wasn't an immediate thing we could decide to go do, we had to think about it. And we kind of came to the realization, I'd rather do something myself. Like we both had about 25 years of professional experience doing the things that I described, and his were similar. And so we got a lot we've done. So what could we do? Well, it's a long story short on that, as we started looking at what are the things that we might be able to do ourselves, meaning our own business.
Right.
So evaluated a number of things. And so through that, when we found Sandler, we pretty much discarded everything else we were kind of looking at, because that was like a standout. This is interesting, better than the other ones we're looking at. And then spent 3 months of real heavy due diligence on Sandler, the business, what's required, et cetera. And I think what certainly sealed the deal for us is the network, as you would appreciate, Patrick, I think, is that the network within Sandler, the Sandler businesses around the country, North America, and were just fantastic. They were all open book. They would tell you all the good, all the challenge, all the difficulties. Every single person we talked to was very clear on the first year and two are brutal, right? So there was no sugarcoating stuff.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So we went in with our eyes open, knowing what we were getting into. And so, yeah, once we decided to go, we got it going, which was officially in really July and August of 2022.
It's interesting because our stories are similar in ways, Rob, but also there's one distinct difference. We started our company in 2019, right before the pandemic hit. We built it during this global, shutdown, and it was that brought its own set of challenges, right? I think the thing we were missing, and the difference between our startups, was that we didn't have that network and that support and the other franchisees to reach out to. We were creating something from scratch, and it was me all by myself originally, and then eventually I brought on some partners, and we brought on affiliates and so forth. But I would have loved to have that roadmap, I guess if you will, where you could be in business for yourself but not by yourself.
Yeah,
that's really valuable, because you're not making it up as you go along like we have been, right?
Yeah, that's great. Exactly. And we'll talk a little bit more about Sandler, but I mean, like, the amazing content is there. Like, we didn't have to go and create that. That's the beauty of
exactly
this, right? The hardest part, of course, which is getting it off the ground, right? It's ours. It wasn't, there's nothing given to you. You have to go get it. But the content's there and that sort of thing. So
yeah,
but
that relationship, we've established relationships with vendors over the last several years, and that's been fine, and they're fantastic, and in a very real sense, they're the business side, they're the Sandler side. They already have an existing cost reduction approach or an existing product line, and so I guess there's some similarities there, but. Yeah. But I know the fact, because I know other Sandler franchisees. I've got a very good friend named Jeff Schneider up in Portland, and he's talked to me a lot about how they really help you. They really give you the blueprint. They give you the roadmap. They give you the support and the content and the training, and so you're not having to reinvent the wheel. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Your job is to go out and find customers. They really hand you this business model that has been proven for decades, right?
Which is amazing. One of the hardest things is just forgetting what you think you know, or what would come naturally to you in terms, and just following what is, like you said, the roadmap. So that can be difficult at first, right? Because you're like, well, that doesn't seem like right. So I would normally go this direction with this. And so I think to be successful, not only with the training that you take with Sandler, but also as a business with it, is just following what works, even when it's not natural or counterintuitive in some ways.
It's a good word for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a proven roadmap. It's a proven template, right? Yeah. And yeah, I bet you deal with the same thing, and you have those same conversations with your customers on a daily basis, because much of what Sandler does, which we'll get into maybe after our break here, but much of his approach and their approach to sales is counterintuitive, right? It's non-traditional in a very real sense, which I loved, because as soon as I tried it and figured it out, it was so refreshing, and not to mention effective, but I bet you have those conversations every day with the clients, right? Say, just trust me. Just trust me. This is going to work.
Yeah, you do have to. You get some that are very easily like, okay, let's do this. And others, that maybe have a lot of experience, it's maybe harder to do that. And so it usually takes, they'll get a little bit of a grasp on it, but they're only really doing a little bit of it, right? And so once you go through the course longer, then that's if they start letting go of that and just accepting, I have to be uncomfortable doing these things, and then it becomes less uncomfortable, and then you get really good at it.
Yeah. So you have 3 children. You kind of skipped past your upbringing. You have, do you attribute some of what you're doing and how you do it to your family, to your parents? Yeah. I mean,
in terms of like what I've done in career wise, I mean, I think I was always comfortable with, I worked at a very early age at a golf course, at the driving range, picking up golf balls, and then migrating up to being in the cleaning golf clubs, and then into the pro shop, right, where I worked with people and stuff. So I've always been comfortable, I think, as a young person interacting with people. So that my career path and what I was doing made sense from what I kind of grew up with, right? And so, I was very much an extrovert as a younger person. I've been a little less of that as I've gotten, into my 50s. It's been an interesting journey.
I bet. I have a partner of mine who just moved from Scottsdale to Eden Prairie, Minnesota, to be close to her grandkids. She says, I think we're going to be snowbirds, though. I think we're going to go back in the winter.
Believe me, they will. They're not from there. It'll take them one winter to realize they need a second place.
Yeah. She's excited to be close to her grandbabies.
Yeah, that's a great place. Great place to grow up for sure.
Absolutely. So we're up against our first break. You're listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Laing and Rob Jeremiassen. He's one of the partners in Scale Up. What's the full name exactly, Rob? Scale Up
Advisors.
That's right.
Yeah.
Scale Up Advisors. They do sales and management training here in the Las Vegas, Nevada area, and elsewhere if you're referred, right? You really have no limit if someone refers you elsewhere. But don't go away. We're going to give you a quick minute for our advertisers to look at you and for you to look at them. We'll be right back.
Follow Voice America at Facebook.com/Voice America for juicy updates from your favorite radio shows and podcasts.
Certainty Management can help create more certainty in your life with our deep discount health insurance options, even for 1099s, part-time employees, volunteers, and more. Pay less to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your team. Call 888-684-3122 for a free quote today. That's 888-684-3122. Visit us on the web at CertaintyTeam.com. That's Certainty, TEAM, like Mary.com.
If you're a nonprofit in need of funding, we can help. Certainty Management is a cost reduction firm that also helps churches, schools, sports teams, and other nonprofits raise unlimited zero-cost funding. Best of all, you don't have to sell anything or ask for donations. Call 888-684-3122 to learn more today. That's 888-684-3122. Visit us on the web at CertaintyTeam.com. That's Certainty, Team, like Mary.com.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You're listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Laing. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
You know, Rob, as I was thinking, as the prelude was playing, it talks about how I'm a veteran, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I meet people sometimes who are like, wow, your hair is a lot longer than a veteran's usually is. I need a haircut right now. If you're on YouTube watching us, it's like I was on a call the other day with 3 or 4 other guys, and they were all bald as a jaybird, right? They were, and they were telling me that bald is beautiful.
Of course they were.
They were giving me a hard time about my long curly hair, that both my grandfathers had full heads of hair. And I said, well, guys, I'll take your word for it, but
I'll keep my hair. Right?
But I do need a haircut, and it gets curly, as you can see. You know.
Yeah, it does. I do know. Yeah.
Yeah.
You look very nice today, Patrick.
Oh, thanks, man. You too, my friend. Okay, so if you just joined us, we're listening to Rob Jeremiassen, visiting with him. He's one of the founders of a unique sales and management training organization named Scale Up Advisors. They are a Sandler franchisee in Las Vegas, Nevada. Tell us just in 60 seconds, what is Sandler? What do you do? Let's break it down a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So Scale Up Advisors, right? We provide, and what we offer the market is Sandler sales and leadership training, organizational development for companies of all sizes, right? And so the clients that we work with are, they're successful companies in their own right, but they may be looking for some improvement. So they may be challenged with a number of things. They might be struggling with their teams aren't very good prospectors, or they're uncomfortable in that environment, and the consequence being they're not bringing in new clients, new customers, which is the lifeblood of any successful business, right? They could be struggling with, their sales cycles go on forever and ever, right? And their team's spending so much time, things drag on, and oftentimes nothing ever comes out the other end of it, right? Or they might be concerned about keeping their top sales talent, right? Because they've got, people coming and going, and they don't want to lose their best people. Sometimes that's the reason for why they might work with us. So, Sandler's been really successful at helping salespeople, but in other areas we'll talk about, really make the changes to be more successful on a permanent basis, and through the reinforcement component that Sandler is really good and effective at, and is why so many clients stay with us. So it's maybe a 1-minute overview of Sandler and what we do.
Yeah, that's great. When I was first introduced to Sandler, it resonated with me immediately. I know that some people, maybe it takes a little bit to warm up, but I was, although David Sandler, who was the founder, he and I are very different personalities. He was this hard-nosed Easterner. Is he from New York or Chicago or Baltimore? So, very direct, very in your face a little bit, very, very, I think of him as East Coaster, right? It's like a New Yorker, right?
Yeah.
He's from Baltimore. But his philosophy was that he believes that every salesperson should have equal business stature with their customers. And his approach was, for me, just this breath of fresh air. I had been in sales for 20 years when I was introduced to Sandler. This was, maybe 15 years ago.
Right.
A little more than that, maybe 16, 17 years ago. It was such a breath of fresh air. And I'm sure you hear that from a lot of people, right? Do you want to unpack a little bit why I would say that? And if not, I'll add to it.
Yeah, I think what you described, I mean, what David Sandler, why there is Sandler training, right? Why there is that he was struggling himself in the field of sales. And there's got to be a better way. He'd done all sorts of training, that sort of stuff. One of the things that he did was work with a fairly renowned psychologist in establishing Sandler, because what he wanted to understand is just more of the human interaction, human behavior side of things, right? In terms of why different people do different things with the same information or the same approach or whatever, and understanding that piece of it. And that was a fundamental part of it, and is well embedded within everything Sandler is that piece of it. So I think that's a core element of it. And I think, to your point, which is, salespeople maybe historically they're hoping that the buyer will like me, right, and that they'll buy my stuff, or I'll buy my services, and it's kind of like the groveling salesperson type of thing, hoping for the best outcome. And so, David Sandler's approach that's not it at all. I mean, what you have is of equal or greater value than the person you're working with. So it's important that you have what we call equal business stature, right? They have possibly a problem that you can fix. If so, you are the expert in this area to deliver that good or service to help that person's issues or problems or make them more successful, right? And so you need to go in with the right mindset, but also know how to establish that, because that's not an automatic, obviously.
Well, I've talked for years with my salespeople about, not all of the Sandler model. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but I have my favorites, right? These specific approaches, the Sandler submarine, the upfront contract, the understanding fear in a customer, the Chinese menu, these things that are Sandlerisms, right? I mean, just to help clarify, Sandler taught a model called the Sandler submarine, and he broke the steps of a sale into various compartments. You picture an old submarine, those old war movies like U-571 or something. There's usually they take a hit and one compartment is filling up with water and they have to hurry and close the hatch. And there's always one guy who gets stuck in there, right? Blah, 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 he's like drowned through the porthole. And, but he talked about how you have to close these compartments before you move to the next one. But I think one of the most unique things about it is he flips the entire process on its end, talking about establishing business stature or equal business stature and this relationship with your customer. He was also very big on not, how did he say it? Not being an unpaid salesperson.
No more free consulting, right? Unpaid consulting. Yeah.
And I love that because I've done a lot of it in 20 years.
Most do. So that's great. I mean, Patrick, so what Sandler's law has evolved over the years around that. Like, for example, we're not using the submarine per se anymore, but the same elements and components just in how we go about training those. But I think a little bit to what you were talking about is, there's a definite process and methodology used, right? And so that first piece is around establishing the right type and kind of rapport with someone that you're meeting, let's say for the first time, to get some establishment of relationship and trust, which will then get you to equal business stature, right? So once you have that established, and then that next bit you talked about, upfront contracts, which is, man, it is one of the most effective. It's almost like a little thing that seems pretty simple, but if you
powerful.
When you apply it properly, man, it helps set up what it is designed to do is give the salesperson, which often they're missing, which is control of a process, a sales engagement, a conversation, without being controlling. So it's not about the salesperson controlling and dominating it to the detriment of who you're talking to. It's you having control, but in a way that's mutually beneficial. So you're both working towards the same objective and getting out, what did you need to know? What do you want? What do I want? And at the end of that, we'll make a decision on either yes or no, or move forward. If not, no problem. But if we do, here's what the next steps are going to be, type of thing. So it's super, super effective. there. And then the really the core piece, it is not about how to close better and faster and all that sort of stuff. What it is, really the most impactful stuff is getting off to the right start, like what I described, but then the qualification piece, right? And so, in sales, there's a lot of, always be closing sort of thought, like close every time you as much as you can, often as you can, and, get the sale. So sales is not about, it's all about qualification, always be qualifying, right? And there's 3 phases to that. Quickly, those are, understand what we call pain. What is the problem the prospect that you're working with has, right? And there's a couple elements to that, is what they say they have the issue with, but digging in to understand what are the reasons for that problem, and then what is the impact? Because you need to get it to an impact of, it's costing me this much, or I'm not getting this much, or I'm losing something. Usually it's dollar terms that are really meaningful. Or it could be, if I don't get this fixed, I'm going to get fired, right? That motivates somebody. When it's a big dollar figure, or it's another element of issue, then they're motivated to do something.
Right. Well, speaking of the upfront contract, I want to drill down on that a little bit more, because it's my favorite part, one of my favorite parts, right, in the whole process, because I talk about refreshing, right? And setting yourself apart from your competition or from other salespeople. When you start out with this statement that, the reason we're here to see if we're a fit, right? See if I like you and you like me, or we like you and you like us. And you establish this understanding of what's going to transpire. At the end of the appointment, you're going to get a yes or a no. You're ensuring you're speaking to the right person. You discuss the budget. But that transition from that upfront contract into pain, and asking those questions and get them to open up, that's what eliminates all the unpaid consulting, right? First, you determine that they have a need, and then you determine you're talking to the right person, and you get into the budget. And the thing that is most different maybe about it is that the presentation comes at the end.
At the end, yes, correct.
Right? Yeah. And so you're presenting to the right person, saying the right things. You can do it faster. It's more customized. I love that, because you know how many presentations I've done in my career, and then I'm kind of closed after I've thrown everything against the wall, hoping something sticks.
Right, yeah.
Sandler's more like a sniper approach than a shotgun approach, and it's very invigorating. It was very invigorating for me.
Yeah. Upfront contract, like I said, there's the elements are, what are the purpose? What are we here for? How much time do we have? And when we're good for that, what is it that you want to get out of today's call, meeting, what have you? Like, what's your agenda, right? Here's what I want to get out of it. And I want to ask about A, B, C. And is it okay if I ask you those questions? And that's important, because a lot of times the salesperson goes in and the prospects go, okay, sales rep, okay, I'm gonna hammer him with all the questions. I want to get all the information I can from him. And that's when you start doing the tap dance. It's just a tap dance then. So you're saying, okay, we're going to cover these things that you want to hear. Here's what I need to cover. And is it okay if I ask you these questions, right? And then at the end, outcome. We'll either decide on A or B, and we can figure that out at the end. And if there's a next steps, we'll work that out together. So that is very impactful in terms of structuring that conversation and getting the right plan together with them agreeing and an outcome, to your point, right? But it's important to let the other thing is to let them know it's okay to say no. In other words, Patrick, if we get to the end of this conversation, you don't think I'm the right fit for you, I'm not the right resource for your company, that's okay. Are you okay to tell me that?
Right. First time they've ever heard that from a salesperson in their entire career, right?
So that's really important to give you the right to tell me that no is a good, okay answer, and I'm accepting it. I'll accept that. Conversely, I'll also say, listen, I don't think I can help you or fix problems that you might have. I'll tell you that. Is that all right if I also tell you that?
I know. It's so refreshing. I know I keep using that word, but that was the thought that kept going through my mind. When I was first trained we started using it. I was just like, man, this is amazing, because you see the customer's walls come down when you take this approach. Customers usually have their walls up with salespeople, right? They don't want to be sold. And yet their walls, they didn't just come down, they evaporated in front of my eyes as I started taking this approach. And then I want to talk a little bit more about pain, because I think it's a critical piece.
It is.
In all of this. But anything more you want to add to upfront contract?
No, I think we covered it well. I mean, it sets up your call, your meeting each and every time you're having it, because you might have a 10-step, 5-step, whatever number of engagements on this sales cycle. Using it every time in the same manner gets you a much better meeting, call, whatever.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, as you know, we've talked about my story. I was a sales director for a remodeling firm in Portland, Oregon. And I forget how I was introduced to Sandler, but somehow we came across it and we went to a day of kind of an introduction seminar, and we decided to implement it into our team. And I'll talk a little bit later about what happened, because it was transformational. But let's go back to pain. Why do you think getting into that customer's pain is so powerful, or their fear, right? Yeah. Their fear of loss is probably the biggest fear for people, right? The fear,
pain or problem in the present's the most important thing, right? That anyone wants to address. But the critical thing is you got to go in with the thought of, I'm only here to help fix a problem that you have. Like there's no value in me coming to you to tell you how great my offering is if I don't even know you even have a problem, much less if I can fix that problem, right? And so
absolutely,
and throughout you always have to you identify that issue and those problems, and then you're talking about those problems only. When you get to presentation, it's only about those problems. But the important thing about that component is again, there's usually there's a Sandler rule that says the problem the customer tells you is not the real problem, right? And so that's usually what we call surface problem. Right. And so they'll identify that. But the real job is understand, okay, what's causing that? So there's a way to go question and dig in to get to those underlying problems. And then once you've done that, is then working out what does that mean? What is the impact to you as a person or you as a business? What does that mean? Right. Mm-hmm. And that's because then it becomes an emotional thing rather than just intellectually, I have to fix a problem. Right. Because then it's like, oh, I'll think about it. I'll think about fixing this problem. Once it's emotional, that's what triggers the I am going to do something about the problem.
Right. You have to make it personal. You have to make sure they are connecting with it and identifying. And
that was a real learning.
You got to peel back the layers, right? You got to peel back the layers of the onion with them.
Correct. So. Yep. That gets you to action once there's an emotional connection to the problem.
Yeah. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about pain and fear in sales, because I believe it, understanding it and helping your clients resolve that is one of the most powerful elements in sales. I mean, I've been in sales for 38 years. So let's talk about that in a minute, and I'll share a little bit more about my story. We're visiting with Rob Jeremiassen of Scale Up Advisors. And we're up against our next and last break, so don't go away. We'll be right back.
Voice America is on LinkedIn. Connect with us today.
If you're a nonprofit in need of funding, we can help. Certainty Management is a cost reduction firm that also helps churches, schools, sports teams, and other nonprofits raise unlimited zero-cost funding. Best of all, you don't have to sell anything or ask for donations. Call 888-684-3122 to learn more today. That's 888-684-3122. Visit us on the web at CertaintyTeam.com. That's Certainty, T-E-A-M, like Mary.com.
Certainty Management can help create more certainty in your life with our deep discount health insurance options, even for 1099s, part-time employees, volunteers, and more. Pay less to protect yourself, your loved ones, and your team. Call 888-684-3122 for a free quote today. That's 888-684-3122. Visit us on the web at CertaintyTeam.com. That's Certainty, TEAM, like Mary.com.
Voice America Business Network, the bottom line in business.
You're listening to Finding Certainty with Patrick Laing. Have a question for Patrick or his guests? Join us on the show at 866-472-5790. That's 866-472-5790. Now, back to the show with Patrick.
Welcome back to Finding Certainty. We're glad you're with us on this nice Friday morning. Visiting with Rob Jeremiassen. He's the co-founder of the Sandler franchise here in Las Vegas. They are a sales trainer. They do leadership development, operations, etc. I do want to get you to tell us just a little bit about that side of the business, but
Sure.
Let's come back to that in a minute here.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about this process of getting the customer to open up, sharing their needs and worries and pain, as Sandler calls it. I think it's a really critical piece. And for many, many years now, I've talked to my salespeople about the power of understanding their fear and even highlighting that fear. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Rob. What do you think the greatest fear of most customers is?
Their greatest fears, could be, it usually stems from a lack of trust, right? Oftentimes, I should say, comes from a lack of trust. And that they're really not letting the prospective seller or whoever they're working with work with them in a way that actually gets to the real problems or gets the relationship established enough where there can be the openness, if you will, that is needed if you're really going to have a effective relationship and an outcome that's the best it can be, right? So that maybe is part of it.
I totally agree. I think there's kind of two main fears I think customers deal with. One is the fear in the relationship with the salesperson. Can this salesperson really help me? Can I trust them, to your point? Are they going to be a waste of my time and money, right? Beyond that, though, getting into the customer's pain, in my experience, we all have fears, right? We have fear of the dark, fear of public speaking, fear of death, right? They rank the top fears. Most people, I think I heard Jay Leno once say that most people would rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy,
Right?
It's fear of public speaking, but I think it all comes down. It is just gospel according to Patrick, but I believe it all comes down to the fear of the unknown. And it's one thing that Sandler does really good is it peels back the layers of their fear or their pain and shows them a path so they have certainty. There's our Finding Certainty plug, right?
Yeah.
So they have certainty, they have clarity in where they can go and how to get there. Would you agree?
Yep, 100%. Yeah, that is a good way to put it. And if the establishment of trust is there to be able to really dig into the issues, again, more than just the surface level, because normally you'll get a surface level problem. That's what they want to deal with. And that usually what salespeople do is they hear the first problem, and they're like, I've been waiting all week for one of these things to come along and just bounce on it. And they're doing the show and tell, right? It's called the show up and throw up, right? And telling them how great their stuff is, usually a feature benefit sort of thing. And that's going to be the answer that they need. Right. And then they might progress along and that deal might close and what have you. But it's kind of surface level engagement, surface level, maybe impact and result for that company or that person.
100%. Our experience with Sandler was anything but surface, right? We had our salespeople go attend the President's Club, as we called it back then. I assume that's still what it's called. But it was very deep running, I guess. And yet it wasn't rocket science. It wasn't complex or complicated. They were very simple principles that Sandler just realigns them in a way and repackages them, I guess you could say, in a way that was really easy to learn. It was really easy to wrap our heads around. Once we got it, though, our salespeople just loved it.
Yeah, the important thing, and why Sandler is so effective, right, is the way in which it approaches the training itself. I mean, I've been in lots of training, and many, you might be a 1 day, a 2 day workshop, a 5 day thing, or once a quarter for a day, and it's a lot of information that you get in a lot of training, and it might be and it could be the greatest thing that you need, and you're all about it. But what happened? No human can absorb that much information and apply it and make it stick. So, a month goes by, 2 months, 3 months go by, usually hanging on to one of maybe 10 things, right? And that's normal. But what Sandler does is it's not a quick fix solution. It's a little bit of training over a long period of time. All of our training courses are a year long. Many can go 2 and 3 years if the clients want to. But it's around taking a bit of information, in a building block sort of way, as we've kind of talked a little bit about, and being able to digest it, how you learn how to apply it, tools that are given to you to use it. And then, it's a weekly or bi-weekly sort of thing over the course of the year. Now it becomes permanent, and there's a real change, right? It's sort of in your DNA now. And that's what makes it work well. And that's really one of the most effective things about Sandler.
That's absolutely right. I experienced it, right?
Yeah.
I talked about my own experience with Sandler. I had never heard of it before. I was introduced to it, went to a 1 day training. We said, wow, this is interesting. Our general manager decided to send me and my assistant sales manager to it, so we could come back and train our salespeople. We started implementing it, and we had them go to President's Club as well. And we took that company from, and I've told you this story, Rob, but we took the company, for all you listeners out there, from $3.5 million a year, 3.8 million a year, to the next year, 7.5 million. We literally doubled our production. To the next year, 15.8 million. Again, we doubled it.
Yeah.
Then we went to 20 million. I mean, you won't keep doubling forever. We were in a small market.
Yeah,
but we were literally selling more than number 2 and number 3 combined. Chicago and Seattle. We became the number 1 branch in the country out of 65 offices nationwide.
Yeah.
And we were a lot smaller market than some of these places. Like Portland compared to Chicago is just, there's no comparison. But we we kicked all their butts, right?
Yeah, that's exciting.
And I attribute it all to, I mean, it wasn't all to Sandler. It was some other things we did, but definitely on the sales side, they eventually promoted me to be a national sales trainer, and I traveled all over the country teaching offices how to do what we did. And Sandler was part of that. And sorry, you guys didn't get paid for that, but
listen, that's okay. That's great. I mean, I think it'll give you the process, the methodology, the roadmap, right? And why you were successful. One is, you used the training and you applied it and you used it, right? And you used the process, the methodology, and the roadmap, and you guys killed it, right? And so it's obviously a two-way street. That we have the content that we can train, and whatever the learner, if you will, the client has to do the other end of it, obviously, for it to be successful. But
unquestionably,
again, yes. Yeah. And it's not, but to your point, it is not like you have to have 20 years experience to have any idea how to even listen to this, or it's not complicated. A very new person just out of school can pick this up and run for sure. You just have to be willing to try it and apply it.
Yeah, for sure. You know what it did for me as a sales manager and a trainer is it made me confident that I could take any salesperson and make them better, whether they were a veteran or a rookie. I recruited a guy who worked at a Valvoline store. He was making about $20,000 a year as a manager. I said, I promise you, we're straight commission, but I promise you can come work for us and you'll quadruple what you're making, quintuple it. And he did. He came to us within a year. He was making 6 digits. He got to buy a house. He got married. He got a dog. Yeah. I remember the day he was leaving, sitting in my office across from the desk from me and the GM, and he was going on his honeymoon the next day to Cancun. He literally had tears in his eyes, Rob, thanking us for changing his life. Right. And it was a honeymoon that took him 3 years to actually go on. But that's my probably my favorite Sandler success.
That's him and his story. I've heard that before from you, so that's good. That's great.
So, in the last couple of minutes here, tell us real quick what you do on the leadership side, the leadership development.
Yeah, so the sales is kind of the bread and butter, certainly for Sandler. But we also do leadership. There's 2 other key components: leadership training, which is for the manager, a VP of sales, a CRO, could be the owner of the company, person that's responsible for the revenue of the business, right? And so that's a program that really goes into 3 areas. One is the leadership component, where they're at as a leader, where they need to be, what their gaps are, how to get there. The other is the people side, right? So with the people they have now, what do they need? How do they find them? How do they properly interview? How do they select? How do they onboard, get them productive, and grow them as people within the business? That's the other one. And then the third is the actual, the managing and executing of the business, right? So the metrics, the KPIs, the things that we need to set in place, and the tools that you need to deliver results and grow as you want. Those are the kind of key aspects there.
Right.
And then there's another program, really, is organizational excellence, which is more of an end-to-end piece of it. So this is, HR, ops, marketing, sales, service, delivery, after sales support, whatever, that kind of full piece of it. And it's designed to say, look, if we're, let's say you're a $15 million company, your aim is to be 30, there's a lot of things that you don't have that you need. So how do we logically go about managing that growth and growing the business and all the different things we don't have in place that we need in place? And that's usually for an owner, a CEO, a COO type of person that's responsible for more than one silo of a business, right? So that's another area that we work in. And then as a customer cares and new manager type programs as well that we do. So that would kind of round out a lot of the portfolio.
That is the blueprint, right? As we were saying, the roadmap.
Yeah.
So how do people get a hold of you, Rob, if they'd like to learn more?
Well, as you mentioned, we're based in Las Vegas, and our business is Nevada-based, but we, through introductions and referrals, people we know, et cetera, we can do business really anywhere. Or if it's somewhere that we can't really support them on, there's a vast network that I would be able to connect them to if we can't help them specifically due to location or what have you. But they can reach me at my email, which is, do you want me just to give email and phone number, Patrick, or what's
maybe just the website? We can list the rest of it in the description to the show.
Right. So if you want to give them that, I think, the best way to reach out for us would be scaleup.sandler.com. So SCALEUP.Sandler, SANDLER.com.
Fantastic. You've been listening to Finding Certainty. Again, if you're a repeat offender, as I say, a repeat customer, we appreciate you coming and spending your morning with us. Rob, thanks for being here with us. Always a pleasure, my friend. I tell everyone I know about Sandler, I saw it transform our business. I know it can do the same for both small and large organizations out there. If you're seeking more certainty in your sales, reach out to Rob and David at Scale Up Advisors. If you're looking for more certainty in your life, go back and listen to some of our other episodes. There's several examples of how people are doing that, how you can do that. Hope you have a great weekend, and thanks for joining us here on Finding Certainty.
Thanks for tuning into today's episode of Finding Certainty. We hope you've gained some more insight into how to create more certainty in your own business or nonprofit. Join us next week for another taste of the Certainty Experience. Until then, we wish you greater certainty in all that you do.